A fire can erase a life, but it cannot erase the truth. And this truth begins with the wealth they tried to burn out of existence. They burned his children alive in front of him, not because he was poor or powerless, but because he owned more land than any white man in America. His banks held millions. His name sat on 30 properties. Yet history books pretend he never existed, because in 1921, being a wealthy black man was not an achievement. It was a death sentence. And he was not the only target. 4 other families suffered the same fate, same violence, same silence. This is the story they never wanted the world to hear. History forgets what it is taught to forget. You were taught that black people moved from slavery to sharecropping to survival. You were never taught that from the 1500s to the 1920s, black families built economic empires across continents. Empires are powerful enough to threaten the people claiming superiority. African kingdoms controlled resources that Europe desperately needed. Black entrepreneurs in America owned entire city blocks. These families did not merely endure the system. They outbuilt it and outturned the people who despised them. And that became their crime, because when wealth exposes the lie of inferiority, that wealth becomes a target, not taken gently, destroyed completely. Libraries burned until nothing remained. Property deeds were stolen in the night. Families killed in their beds. Names scraped from maps as if they never lived. This was not random violence. It was structured economic warfare spanning generations. It existed to ensure black children never learned what their ancestors created. Because wealthy black families proved one terrifying truth: the entire system was a lie. Now we return to the man at the beginning, the father who watched flames climb through his home, the patriarch of the Stratford dynasty. J.B. Stratford arrived in Tulsa, Oklahoma, $3 in his pocket and a law degree nobody would honor. His skin made his education worthless in the eyes of white officials. So he began again. He saved every cent. He rebuilt his name. He created opportunities where none were allowed. By 1921, he owned the 54-room Stratford Hotel. It was the largest black-owned building in the entire United States. But the hotel was only one piece of the empire. His family controlled rental properties across Tulsa's Greenwood district. They owned businesses serving thousands of customers. They held land worth $4 million. That equals more than $60 million today. He employed dozens of black workers. His children attended elite schools. His home was a mansion that made white residents furious every time they passed it. Greenwood was not a neighborhood. It was a declaration of self-determined prosperity. More than 600 black-owned businesses operated there. They generated millions of dollars each year. There were black doctors, lawyers, pilots, and oil barons. White observers nicknamed it Black Wall Street, and by every measure, it was more prosperous than most white towns in Oklahoma. J.B. Stratford stood at the center of this achievement. He embodied everything white supremacy insisted was impossible. And white Tulsa watched in rage. How dare black families live better than them? How dare former slaves drive nicer cars? How dare inferiors build taller buildings? How dare their children attend superior schools? It was intolerable. Something, they believed, had to be done. On May 31st, 1921, they acted. A white mob surrounded the Stratford Hotel. J.B. was inside with his wife, his children, and his grandchildren. They could hear the crowd grow larger and angrier. They could hear the chants for blood. Then came the gunshots. Then the torches. Then the screams. The mob set fire to the building, floor by floor, room by room. Women and children screamed at windows. Flames blocked their escape. Bullets cut down anyone who tried to run. Hotabe fought back. He tried to protect his family. But one man cannot stop 1,000. Then the planes came. Actual airplanes flown by white residents. They dropped incendiary bombs on American citizens. The first aerial bombing of a domestic civilian target in United States history did not target foreign enemies. It targeted black wealth. J.B. escaped through the chaos with several grandchildren. They ran through the streets, turning into ash. When he looked back, everything he had built was burning. Every deed, every dollar, every dream. 35 blocks of black prosperity were erased in 24 hours. More than 300 black residents were murdered. 10,000 were left homeless. And J.B. Stratford, one of the richest black men in America, became a fugitive. He fled to Chicago. He was charged with inciting a riot, as if defending your family from a mob makes you the criminal. His insurance company refused to pay a cent. The city seized his property. His hotel was demolished. The ground was paved over. A parking lot now covers the space where black millionaires once gathered. J.B. Stratford died in 1935. He died broken and penniless. He was exonerated in 1996. That was 61 years after his death. Not a single dollar of his stolen wealth was ever returned. The erasure grew deeper. Oklahoma removed the massacre from school textbooks for 75 years. An entire generation of black children grew up unaware that their city once held the wealthiest black community in America. History books listed J.B. Stratford only as a criminal. His grandchildren grew up believing he started a riot. They never learned he built an empire. The erasure was complete. Until now. We shift with an explicit historical transition from 1921 America to the late 1700s United States. The next dynasty existed long before Tulsa rose, yet its wealth and labor were hidden just as carefully. The Hemings, Jefferson dynasty. Everyone knows the name Sally Hemings. She appears in textbooks as Thomas Jefferson's enslaved mistress. But that narrative hides the truth. The Hemings family did not simply serve Jefferson. They operated his entire economic engine. They were skilled artisans, elite chefs, and trained managers. Their labor kept Monticello functioning for decades. When Jefferson died, drowning in debt, it was Hemings' family labor that kept him afloat. Their contributions were worth millions in modern terms. James Hemings, Sally's older brother, played a central role. Jefferson brought him to Paris in the 1780s. He paid for James to train under French master chefs. James learned techniques unknown in America. He mastered French cuisine, pastry arts, and wine pairing. He introduced macaroni and cheese to the United States. He brought crème brûlée to Virginia. He brought the style of potatoes that became American French fries. His skill set held enormous economic value. He earned nothing for it. He remained property. John Hemings, another brother, was a master carpenter. His furniture sold for premium prices, but every piece bore Jefferson's name. Sally ran Jefferson's household. She supervised staff. She maintained financial records. She oversaw operations essential to Monticello's survival. Had the Hemings family received wages for their labor, their wealth today would exceed $50 million. Instead, they received nothing. When James lived in Paris, he was legally free. He could have stayed. He could have built a culinary empire. But Jefferson persuaded him to return. Jefferson promised freedom in exchange for training a replacement. James trusted him. He came back. He trained his brother. He waited. In 1796, Jefferson finally granted him freedom. But freedom came with scars. James had tasted liberty and was forced back into bondage. The psychological burden was immense. He tried building a career. But America was not ready to honor a black chef whose skills surpassed European masters. In 1801, James Hemings was found dead. The official story claims suicide. He was 30. Modern historians question that narrative. James carried knowledge of Jefferson's private life. He knew the truth about Sally. He knew the truth about their children. He knew the truth Jefferson denied publicly. And he was becoming famous for his cooking. His death arrived conveniently for those who feared his influence. The Hemings family's contributions were meticulously recorded by Jefferson. Then the records vanished into archives for 2 centuries. Sally appeared in history as a victim rather than the manager she was. James's culinary innovations were credited to Jefferson. Textbooks taught that Jefferson brought French cuisine to America. They never mentioned the enslaved black chef who transformed American food. In 1998, DNA tests confirmed the truth the Hemings family had preserved for generations. Jefferson fathered Sally's children. Newspapers called it a scandal. But the real scandal was the economic theft. If James and his family had been paid for their work, their descendants would be millionaires. Instead, they were denied wealth and denied recognition. We shift again with a clear historical transition. Now we travel to Haiti in 1804. The only successful slave revolution in world history had just triumphed. The Priesthood royal dynasty. Enslaved Africans defeated Napoleon's army. They declared independence. They founded the first free Black Republic. One of the leaders was Henry Christophe. He was born enslaved. He became a general. He became a king. Henry Christophe built the Citadelle La Ferrière. It was a fortress so immense it remains visible from space. Stones were carried up mountains by hand. Its cost equals $200 million today. He built the Sanssouci Palace, inspired by Versailles. He intended to prove that the black monarchy could rival Europe. He established schools. He built hospitals. He created a national currency. He organized an army of 40,000 soldiers. His family ruled northern Haiti with discipline and vision. Their gold reserves made France anxious. But white powers refused to accept a prosperous black nation. America denied Haitian recognition for 60 years. France demanded that Haiti compensate them for the loss of enslaved people. They threatened invasion if Haiti refused. Britain imposed trade barriers. Haiti's economy did not collapse naturally. It was strangled deliberately. By 1820, Christophe faced betrayal from his government. He faced invasion from the south. He suffered a stroke that left him partially paralyzed. His enemies were prepared to capture him. They planned to humiliate him publicly. They wanted to parade a defeated black king as a warning. Christophe refused to allow it. He loaded a silver bullet into a pistol. He placed it against his chest. He pulled the trigger. He chose his own ending. His wife, Queen Marie-Louise, fled with their children. They carried what gold they could save. France seized the palaces. The economic structures Christophe built were dismantled. Foreign powers rewrote Haiti's history. They depicted Christophe as a tyrant. They erased his schools. They erased his reforms. They erased the vision of a black nation thriving independently. The citadel still stands. Tourists photograph it daily. Few learn what it represented. It symbolized a black monarchy strong enough to frighten Europe. Sanssouci was destroyed by an earthquake in 1842. It was never rebuilt. Christophe's descendants live in obscurity. They hold no wealth and no throne. This was intentional, because if Haiti had been allowed to prosper, every enslaved population in the Americas would have seen a model of black independence. They would have seen proof that black people did not need white masters to thrive. That truth threatened every slaveholding nation on earth. Some histories are hidden to protect the guilty. This is the story of wealth stolen, erased, and rewritten as poverty. They crushed it, erased it, and taught generations that Haiti was always poor. They never mentioned that its hardship was deliberately manufactured. Debt, embargoes, sabotage designed to keep wealth from black hands. Now, the MBA Nzinga dynasty. We travel back to 1506, the Kingdom of Congo in Central Africa. This was no tribal village, as textbooks suggest. It was a sophisticated nation. Its capital, Mbanza, Congo, housed 100,000 people, larger than London at the time. King Alfonso I was not a tribal chief. He was a Catholic monarch. He spoke fluent Portuguese. He maintained diplomatic ties with the Pope. He controlled trade networks across 3 continents. His kingdom exported copper, ivory, and textiles worth millions in Renaissance currency. His family lived in stone palaces. They wore imported silks. They governed using written laws. This kingdom was a peer to European nations, not a subordinate. Portuguese traders arrived. Alfonso welcomed them as partners. Cultural exchange, trade agreements, mutual respect. But the Portuguese wanted one thing Alfonso refused to supply: enslaved people. When Alfonso discovered Portuguese agents kidnapping his citizens, including nobility, he acted. He wrote desperate letters to the King of Portugal and the Pope, begging for intervention. In 1526, he wrote, "We cannot reckon how great the damage is, because these thieves and men of bad conscience grab our people, wishing to take the goods and wares of this kingdom. Every day the traders seize our natives, sons of the land, sons of our noblemen and vassals." Alfonso documented every betrayal. He catalogued kidnappings, destruction, and the decay of his social order. He appealed to Christian morality, international law, and basic human decency. His letters were received, filed, and completely ignored. Portugal armed Alfonso's enemies. They funded rebellions. They encouraged civil war. By 1568, the Kingdom of Congo fractured into competing factions. All were weakened. All were vulnerable. Portuguese slavers raided with impunity. Mbanza, Congo, once a thriving capital, became a ruin. Alfonso's family, once royalty, was captured and sold. Considertes, one generation lives in palaces and negotiates with European powers. The next generation is chained in ships, sent to sugar plantations in Brazil. Royal blood spilled in fields once cultivated by their ancestors. For 4 centuries, Alfonso's letters lay unread in the Vatican and Lisbon archives. European historians wrote that he was a puppet king. They claimed African kingdoms welcomed the slave trade. His civilization was reduced to tribal in textbooks. His legacy was erased. In the 1960s, during African independence movements, the letters were rediscovered. Historians finally saw proof. African kingdoms resisted slavery. They documented their fight. They negotiated, wrote, and persisted. But generations had already been taught that Africa had no history worth remembering. No civilizations are worth studying. No wealth worth acknowledging. By the 2000s, archaeologists excavating Congo shocked the world. Stone foundations, urban planning, and evidence of international trade were uncovered. Shock as if Africans building cities had been impossible. Next, the Kaduyo Maroon dynasty. We traveled to Jamaica, early 1700s. Captain Cujo was an escaped enslaved man. He did something extraordinary. He built a free black nation in the mountains, not hiding, not waiting, governing. By 1739, his Maroon community controlled 1,500 square miles of Jamaican territory. They farmed, they raised livestock, they manufactured goods, they maintained trade networks with British colonists. They prospered, and they had an army. A disciplined army that repeatedly defeated British regiments. Exhausted and humiliated, Britain did something unprecedented in 1739. They signed a treaty recognizing Maroon sovereignty. Cujo's community was legally free, autonomous, and protected. It was the first free black society in the New World. Cujo's family accumulated wealth from crops, trade, and arms deals. They lived better than most British colonists. But the treaty had a hidden cost. They had to return any newly escaped enslaved people. Britain could not defeat them militarily, so they turned freedom fighters into slave catchers. They divided the black community. Law and psychology became weapons. Gradually, British authorities eroded Maroon land rights. Legal disputes, forced purchases, and technicalities shrank their territory. The 1,500 square miles became tiny reservations. The wealth Cujo's family built was confiscated through bureaucracy. By the 1800s, Maroon settlements were impoverished. Descendants remain in Jamaica today. Most do not know they descend from royalty. Most do not know their ancestor built the first free black nation in the Americas. Do you see the pattern? 5 families, 5 centuries, 5 continents. Each built an empire. Each empire was destroyed by violence or betrayal. Each documented their achievements. Records were burned, buried, or lost. Descendants who should have inherited wealth were denied it. They proved black excellence was possible, and for that, they were erased. The math is staggering. If the Hemmings family had been paid fairly and passed wealth down 9 generations, $50 million in 1800 at 3% growth becomes $700 million today. Multiply by 5 families. Tulsa alone lost $200 million in 1921, $3 billion today. Haiti was forced into debt, with $21 billion taken. The Kingdom of Congo's wealth flowed to Portugal. Incalculable theft. This was not poverty. It was the largest wealth theft in human history. And then history taught you the victims were poor because they didn't work hard enough. Here's what keeps the powerful awake. These families were ordinary people given an opportunity. Gibbie Stratford started with $3. James Hemmings started in chains. Henry Christophe was enslaved. Captain Cujo started his property. King Alfonso inherited a kingdom. Imagine if they had been allowed to keep it. If wealth is passed to their children. If grandchildren invested. If great-grandchildren inherited success instead of trauma. Gibbie Stratford's descendants would be billionaires controlling Tulsa real estate. Henry Christophe's descendants would lead Haiti's economy. The Hemmings family would own Monticello and profit every time French fries are served. King Alfonso's lineage would govern a thriving Central African nation. Captain Cujo's Maroons would control the Jamaican mountains and industries. Instead, their wealth fed oppressors' children. Old money in America and Europe comes from theft like this. Every time someone claims black people are poor due to laziness, show them Stratford. Every time someone asks, where's Black Wall Street? Answer, a parking lot. Every time reparations are questioned, ask, have you repaid the Stratford, Hemmings, or Haiti? They did not just steal wealth. They stole proof. They stole rage. They stole the inheritance. They made descendants forget they descended from kings, queens, entrepreneurs, and revolutionaries. They turned them into statistics, fed lies about why. But truth cannot be burned forever. Ashes still spell names. DNA remembers. Stories survive in whispers until someone shouts, 5 familias, just 5. Hundreds more lie. in unmarked graves, archives sealed, districts paved over. The question is not if black people built wealth. The question is, who profited from erasing it? And now that you know, what will you do? Share this story. Make them remember what they tried to forget, because the eraser only works when we allow it.